look at the funk.
Could you stop playing with that radio, Lord? I'm trying to get to sleep. Could you stop playing with that radio, Lord?
Listen up, it's time for your daily dose of Jet Set Radio. All right, everyone, throw your hands in the air and let the groove take control.
Sega was an underdog competing against two titans in an uphill battle they couldn't win. In order to compete with the likes of Sony and Nintendo, Sega had to stand out in a way that hasn't been done before. With extremely unique and original games that's good enough to reel in new crowds and steal the attention away from its competitors. One of the most notable examples of Sega's big dreams was in fact Jet Set Radio. It was developed by a small video game developer known as Smilebit and was made from a team of only 25 members. This team was the embodiment of Sega's underdog dreams and took the task of making the Sega Dreamcast stand out amongst the crowd. They envisioned a goal that ultimately led to a video game that emphasizes the art of self-expression, self-identity, and being different.
What's going on? What's going on? What? I don't understand what's going on here.
The game features a wide cast of characters blasting an even wider range of musical genres, all whilst tagging the streets of Tokyo-to, even when police tanks attack helicopters and demons stroll in to stop you. Jet Set Radio stands out due to its pioneering and first of its kind, bold, colourful, cel-shaded graphic style that was used accidentally whilst playing around with different art and graphical styles, and ultimately built the entire game based around concept art, which are essentially anime-fied street culture brought to life, using this brand new graphic style. Unfortunately, this pioneering incredible game was one of the last games released for the Sega Dreamcast. Sega was on the verge of failure with their last console, the Sega Saturn, not being an impactful console across all regions. Sega games and appeal wasn't bright enough compared to its competitors. Sega's last chance at redemption was with the release of the Sega Dreamcast, and unfortunately, as unique as Jet Set Radio was, along with the rest of the console's games, as a last-ditch redemption, Sega offered a 100% rebate for all Sega Dreamcast consoles and a keyboard when subscribing to SegaNet, their online subscription, for 2 years. It was not enough to stop Sega's inevitable death, and thus Jet Set Radio was kept behind closed doors, as less than a year after it released, Sega halted the production of the Sega Dreamcast and their console dreams died forever.
I don't understand what's going on here.
Take 8 wheels, put them on millions of pairs of feet, and you have a great national pastime.
And the beach has more roller skaters than ever.
It's been for a long time people have been skating here, but now even more so.
Roller skates have been a part of our society since the 18th century, since a man named John Joseph Merlin once skated whilst playing his violin. Fast forward to the 1950s and 60s, which is where roller skates started to gain popularity due to the birth of rock and roll, and over the next 20 years, in the 70s and 80s, reached its all-time high in popularity. As it evolved from a pastime into competitive sports such as speed skating and jam skating, that's what we must discuss for Jet Set Radio. The invention of inline skates changed the way the world thought of roller skating. It creates more movement at high speeds and more creativity and control, especially at an advanced level. This high-skilled movement is translated very extensively in the gameplay of Jet Set Radio. Although exaggerated in a typical anime fashion, the main theme or bread and butter of Jet Set Radio is speed skating, jam skating, and the eccentric fashion of the game's music and art themes that excel this skating genre. The more traditional four-wheeled skate doesn't quite allow much room for competitive speed skating. However, it gives the user more freedom and control at slower speeds and allows the way for jam skating to thrive. Jam skating is the art of expressive dance while moving at higher speeds than just on your feet usually would, but using roller skates. Traditionally used in roller disco but has elements of breakdancing, artistic skating, gymnastics and modern dance. translating all these already complicated movements whilst gliding on roller skates. It's an ever-evolving genre of dance, a very advanced and evolved version of the original inventor's intention of the skates. Jam skating is a major influence within Jet Set Radio. Although the characters use inline skates within the game, the tricks and dance often used within jam skating appears within the game and is a huge influence on many cutscenes and is seen many times when introducing or showcasing characters.
Sales have dropped off in comparison with our roller skate sales, which have probably doubled or tripled in the last year to year and a half.
Now, technically speaking, graffiti has existed since ancient times, but more accurately, the art of graffiti and its artists and writers rose significantly within America in the 1960s and 70s. This was used quite often as personal tags, but also to mark gang territory, but it did eventually evolve into an expressive form of hip-hop and is closely associated with the genre. 1/3 of Jet Set Radio's gameplay and drive is the roller skating, another third is the skills and tricks to increase your points. However, that final third is the creative tags and graffiti across the game's story and its driving force that creates the story, as the Tokyo police force are motivated to halt the spread of gangs' territory and graffiti across the city. June 29th in the year 2000, Japan saw the release of Jet Set Radio. Project director Masayushi Kikuchi and art director Ryuta Ueda set out to create a game delved in the pop culture that could resonate to young audiences on a realistic level. Their previous work was in deep fantasy. In the game Panzer Dragoon Saga, they set work on early drafts of what would become Jet Set Radio, and after seeing early concept art of a punk kid listening to music with his headphones on, they developed the game solely based around this one piece of art. Ryuta Ueda once stated in an interview, "At around the end of the 90s, the pop culture was great, as was the youth culture in Tokyo. There was a lot of dynamism, energy, and vibrant colours. The music was also a mixture of rock, and DJ culture was extremely popular, and among them was the revival of hip-hop culture, which he liked at the time and influenced him in many ways." When it came to creating Jet Set Radio, he wanted to broadcast his youth to the world and express an image of what was popular in Tokyo at the time. This led to him creating concept art for who would turn out to be Beat, and the rest of the game flowed from what Ueda envisioned. In the same interview, lead director Masayushi Kikuchi speaks about the development of the game after seeing Ueda's concept art. He says that early on, they was led by visual impact and imagery alone when envisioning an inline skate game. Although they only had a vague idea of how to move forward, he says they could not remember if they was decided on the graffiti element yet. It was not even decided which genre the game would be. They was going off visual impact alone. He says it could have easily become an adventure game or even an RPG. Ueda's concept art was the only thing the team had decided on, and although they floated many scenarios, Kikuchi decided he preferred not to make a complicated game. They wanted to make a simple game that led the focus being on pop culture of the time that their current imagery held. Through trial and error, they came up with a couple fun concepts for a game, one basing it entirely off simply drawing some fun illustrations, or another game walking through a densely packed city. Through lots of trial and error, they could not create an interesting concept for a game, which led to the executives becoming frustrated at Kikuchi, and possibly doubt. This was his first ever experience leading a team or creating his own game. He had only worked in part of a larger team in the past, and states it took a lot of time and effort to create a core part of a game everyone would find interesting.
Let's get scratching.
Jet Set Radio featured a pioneering graphic style known as cel-shading. This is a fairly popular art style in modern games, however at the time this was never translated into a video game format. It was first of its kind. Cel-shading helps sell to the player the impression they are almost in a living cartoon or comic. Ueda speaks of how 3D games were evolving at the time. When 3D games was released by different companies one after another, the industry all started leaning toward making a realistic setting. The end objective was that everyone wanted to create a highly realistic world, and that this team wanted to create something entirely different. He says that in the very beginning, they had structured the game around strong manga and anime culture, and wanted to create a game that would cleverly transform and redefine it, and after searching through various computer graphics techniques, he thought cel-shading was perfect and would really catch on. He did not anticipate how extremely challenging cel-shading graphic style would be on the Dreamcast at the time, and says he feels lucky they was able to reproduce it. Once the developers knew the basic look and gameplay to go for, they set their sights on devising eye-catching locations that would stand out and feel natural, as well as a populated cast of rich and varied characters. In modern games, when creating a character, developers and fans often think about who is the character, what is their backstory, what drives them to be them, who are their family. It's the norm in character creation. But Kikuchi had an interesting approach when it came to developing his wide cast. When creating his characters, he wanted every character to become more like an icon rather than a character. He wanted people to consider them less as a human and more as an icon, as a symbol. This was something he thought about a lot and ultimately decided he wanted. When it came to creating different maps, he liked to balance his wide cast of characters between different stages and wanted to create concepts of stages with relationships to specific characters. He wanted to create a good balance between all characters and stages as he liked them all. When it came to the inspiration of graffiti and the use of inline skates, Kikuchi was inspired by the pop culture of America at the time, and says that the cultural backdrop of America was a great inspiration to the game. To help expand this backdrop portion influence, he wanted to create a game themed like an American city, and the makeup of the entire game would demand busy streets, tall densely packed buildings to give it a three-dimensional structure, or it wouldn't work. And a good example of that kind of three-dimensional structure would be needed as a frame of reference. Ultimately, he decided that New York was his best guide to achieving this goal. And now, with New York as a main inspiration, the development team was keen to introduce graffiti and tagging as a core gameplay element that would naturally coincide with the inline skating mechanics. And so, Sega turned to US graffiti artist Eric Hayes for his professional input and contribution to make this first ever graffiti-oriented video game to be as authentic as possible.
When I think about my relationship to graffiti and art in general, it almost feels like it was never a choice. Some of it was right time, right place, in the right city. I was kind of born into graffiti in the first and second generation in the late 60s and early 70s.
The music just turns me on.
Sega reached out to me to make a contribution to what was then one of the very first graffiti-oriented video games. Most of the work was actually produced already. It was not so much a question of creating work for the game as finding the kind of existing work, files, or base artwork that could then be manipulated and converted within the technology of the game. I made all of the, at least initial choices consciously in terms of what I thought would be appropriate for the game. My logo and artwork was also used on the packaging, so I think my role had something to do with endorsing the game, not just making a contribution.
Almost everything was laid out. All that was left to add to this vision was a worthy soundtrack.
Y'all ready to get funky?
The most important part of dance is music. So now let us listen to the music and identify the beats.
1, 2, 3.
But that was too soft.
Since the game is very fast paced, it needs a soundtrack to mimic that feeling. Hideki Naganuma was tasked as lead composer to capture the intensity and funk of the gameplay and art in music form. With him is the help of Richard Jacques and Tomonori Sawada. Together they composed an array of combining genres like J-pop, funk, dance, metal, hip-hop, rock, acid jazz, trip-hop and EDM. This was decided purely based on the illustrations of the characters and environment of the game. Naganuma wanted to complement the game's art with his direction of music. The team exceeds at allowing the players to use both sight and hearing to become immersed into the game, as oftentimes you'd be so immersed in the amazing scores you'll naturally be motivated to continue. The bass riffs in the song lean into the EDM and jazz aspects of the songs, which creates a music that evokes a feeling of high energy tones which matches the gameplay. Without realising, you're grooving to the music whilst enjoying the gameplay. Many of the songs here feature chopped voice lines mixed in almost random-like order. But was carefully calculated with Naganuma's brilliant style. He also tends to finish songs in the same style he begins them, making each song feel like a special experience looping itself. Through the 2000s, within this genre of music, sampling is extremely common, in some larger ways than others. Throughout the entire OST, it features 58 known samples across 9 original songs, and we will analyse some of these songs as well, and a few of the samples within them. Sneak Rant is a brilliantly composed jazz funk song with hectic dynamics, strong bass riffs, many unconventional chopped voice lines, and also features a total of 5 samples. We will discuss 2 important ones today. One's from Mama Said Knock You Out from LL Cool J, and the other is from Catch 22's Boogie Down. In order to hear the rhythmic potential in these songs, takes great music insight, and Naganuma is nothing short of a musical genius. Within Sneakman, you can hear the themes that resonate in the same emotions that could be seen with chase music. A sense of sneaking around similar to the Mission Impossible theme, and sounds exactly like how stealth would be. The song is very bass heavy and involves a breakbeat. It uses a wub soundboard and creates a very bouncy sound across the stereo. Next up is That's Enough, another song composed by Naganuma. However, it takes a different direction to most of the tracks in this game. This song creates a far chiller vibe and is something you'd rather bop your head to and quietly enjoy. Hideki's inner DJ shines here and creates a feeling of chilling out at a party listening to house music. This track is not the most technical from the OST, but remains memorable due to the overall vibe the player receives, so instead we shall focus on each of the 6 used samples. Let's start with the first 2 seconds of the song. The leading riff guitar that leads the song's direction. It's a sped up sample from Hey Y'all, We're in Miami by Miami. Within the song I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More Baby by Barry White, it features a distinct set of drums that is sped up and re-pitched within That's Enough. A scream from Touch and Go by Ecstasy, Passion and Pain is heard, but is severely pitched and slowed down to better suit the song and overarching themes. This is also similarly edited to this other sample from Think About It by Lynn Collins. Another sample can be heard from Don't Make Me Wait by the Beach Boys. This is another very hidden sample and may take a few times to notice. I'll finish the analysis of this song with samples that has had a little more interesting story. A frequent vocal lyric in the song is "The music just turns me on." Many sources online consider this to be just a sample of Venus 1999. However, this isn't entirely true. Although this sample can be heard within Venus 1999 and that released in 1991, it is actually originated from a song 13 years earlier in a 1978 song, in the song Saturday Night Style by Mikey Dread.
Make you feel alright. Oh my gosh, the music just turns me on.
Within the comment sections of both of these songs on YouTube, there are a few Jet Set Radio fans that recognise the sample. This laid-back funky song has a slight psychedelic feel to it, within its heavy use of echo, slap bass and tape slip effects. To top it off, it also uses a whistling synth to help blend in the samples of the music into one natural flow of sound. One great sample is for the game's main theme, Let Mom Sleep, on top of this bombastic tune. He features a total of 12 samples, one being a sample from an old British sitcom show named Hancock's Half Hour that aired on BBC Radio and BBC TV during the years 1954 to 1961.
Yes. Would you stop playing with that radio of yours? I'm trying to get to sleep. Some of us have to go to work in the morning.
What are you in?
Could you stop playing with that radio of yours? I'm trying to get to sleep.
This song is the manifestation of Naganuma's DJ experience. It just screams DJ, especially with the frequent use of scratches. It combines all of the main themes of the game into one song. Police sirens, sneak music, and ultimately rebellion and chaos. It features loads of musical stings before the bridge and uses frequent tape skip effects. One final thought that really shines on Naganuma's music intelligence is how clean the guitar chords remain throughout the song. They remain unedited with no effects tampered and really grounds this song into making it more memorable. Let Mom Sleep is a great main theme song and is created as a teaser to the rest of the game, making the player anticipate what's to come. Grace and Glory is devised as a final boss theme as it plays throughout the final level of the game. Its distorted, eerie nature immediately stands out from the rest of the game and slowly introduces scatting bass, vocal bass and choral sounds to exaggerate its creepy vibe. It does start to add a slight breakbeat and hip-hop fashion beat to ground it back to the reality of the game's soundtrack. But this is overshadowed by the sheer amount of resonance within the echo. And during the bridge, the sounds we are now accustomed to are reversed within the bridge to create a sense of the unknown. Overall, Grace and Glory is a very layered and chaotic sounding track that serves well as a boss's theme. It uses the repeated sounds that are distorted throughout the song to set a tone of evolution as the song comes to an end. Rock It On is a rock and roll inspired song with key features of R&R, a crunchy guitar lead, a noticeable use of synth arpeggiator, frequent 4/4 time signatures, and finally features 4 distinctive samples. Around the bridge it slowly picks up an extra instrument, chopped vocals, a staccato guitar and bass that flows into a funky fusion, releasing a sporadic feeling of high energy. The frequent use of this line, "Rock That Shit Homie," is a chopped and edited sample from the song Terminator X Speaks With His Hands by Public Enemy.
Get that shit, right? Rock that shit, homie!
And the final sample I want to discuss isn't actually a sample that features in this song. Hideki Naganuma samples his own sample, Rock It On, in a different track he made for Sonic Rush in 2005, called Right There, Ride On. It is a direct sample of the hook/riff that features throughout the entirety of Right There, Ride On. These tracks show his musical range as he can compose tracks that incite danger and excitement as well as those that develop a calm sense of safety, all whilst keeping that funky emotion, which is what distinguishes him as a musical genius. When Hideki attempts more, it hits great. When Hideki attempts less, it hits great. When it's unconventional or more orthodox methods of music, his charm shines through and is seen in his entire OST. The very last song we will discuss here is also one of the best songs that feature within this OST. It was not actually composed by Hideki Naganuma. The song Everybody Jump Around was composed by Richard Jacques, who went above and beyond and used sampling, marking a total of 14 within this song. It can immediately be seen using a different stylistic structure of instruments and leads a different direction than Naganuma's traditional tracks. It's got simple yet effective repeating electric guitar melodies with sampled synth vocals. As its guitar chords start to descend, it changes into a breakbeat subgenre and becomes very hip-hop heavy. And to top it off, its frequent use of vinyl scratches gives it a more nostalgic DJ vibe. The US release featured a few extra changes that was not released in the Japanese original and vice versa, like a few maps to be more relatable to an American audience, as well as a few added songs to go alongside it. Hideki Naganuma composed most of the original soundtrack of the game, but he also found various artists across Japan to contribute to licensed songs to the game. He approached underground J-rock group Guitar Vader for permission to allow their songs Magical Girl and Super Brothers to feature in the game, of which is a fun reference to the Mario Bros video game and a fun Easter egg since at the time Sega and Nintendo were huge rivals in the industry. Hideki Naganuma is keenly aware of the song placements within this game, which blends so well with the entire direction of the development of the game. Kikuchi decided to create the gameplay based on Ueda's concept art for Kikuchi's youthful hit theme. The vast cast of characters was placed and balanced carefully between the New York-inspired maps, which featured themes that coincided with those character icons. And to top it off, the musical placement is carefully executed and it shows Naganuma is very aware of how certain sequences can affect the player's emotion during the game. For example, the game opens with a bombastic opener of Let Mom Sleep and the game cools you down with a slick and smooth menu theme. After a loud and energetic Sneak Man, we have a funky, smooth and calming essence of Tokyo To in That's Enough. And finally, after the climatic high of Grace and Glory during the final boss level, we now have the jovial goodbye in Sweet Soul Brother. It is really remarkable how this OST compiles of such various songs and genres, and all feels natural due to Hideki's musical charm. The entire development of this game is a constant circle of evolution that derives itself from just a few pieces of concept art into soundtrack that has become a driving force of this game's appeal and cult following.
で、ボイスを細かく切り刻んで、 順番を入れ替えたりとかして、全く意味のない言葉になったりするのを夜中に一人で作りながらケラケラ笑って作ってたりはしてました。はい。
Unfortunately, once released, the game did not sell successfully across Japan, despite sheer amounts of youthful passion and dedication to creating an authentic product. This may have been due to Japan's traditionally conservative views as a society which do not align with the context of Jet Set Radio. Another contributing factor could be due to Sega's decline at the time when making consoles. They was not viewed positively by most of Japan, and the Sega Dreamcast that Jet Set Radio released on was Sega's last console ever made. Many of its artistic innovations went unnoticed. However, in the West, and specifically America, Sega did not have this negative perception by the public, and the game was released as Jet Grind Radio, and amassed a cult following due to its unique cel-shaded art style and urban street themes, made it stand out to many diverse communities. Many of the game's inspirations like skate culture and funk music was born in America, as well as many of the maps being inspired by cities like New York. This resonated to young audiences across America and made Naganuma's unique artistic style become deeply appreciated as he gained a huge internet cult following. In less than 10 months, this group of 25 people created the pioneering Jet Set Radio. The game introduces you with a tutorial at the beginning and at certain stages throughout the game. These tutorials are typically follow this character's movements, which sounds mundane and basic, but it's honestly extremely useful tutorial as the game does feature difficulty spikes pretty early on, and the controls of the game are difficult to understand at first glance. It will introduce you to the wider mechanics of the skating and grinding themes the game entails, and will be beneficial to learn early on in order to maximise your joy and minimise your frustration with the game, which there could be a lot. Within the streets of Tokyo, you'll find pickups which are spray paints. There are 3 types. The yellow ones give you the ability to spray 1 tag, the blue ones give you the ability to spray 5, and the red ones heal your health bar, which is needed as you progress, but also to focus on keeping a steady supply of spray cans to complete the level. On top of the main objectives of avoiding arrests and tagging Tokyo, we have the point system, which seems almost meaningless at first, as it seemingly only contributes to the rank of your mission and does not actually impact the game progression at all. Seemingly, accomplishing the highest rank, the Jet rank, can unlock certain characters and widen the GG's roster. You obtain points by stringing together long combos of specific movements on the controller, whilst tagging the streets and doing tricks mid-air. At the end of every level, your points are tailed up and you obtain bonus points depending on your remaining health, remaining time, remaining spray cans, and extra if your life is at 100%. Each character has distinct patterns for spraying graffiti, along with having their own unique stats, which we will discuss further soon. Throughout the levels, there are smaller distractions in the form of collectibles. However, the collectibles in this game seem more worthwhile and motivate you to want to collect them. They grant you bonus graffiti designs and feel more rewarding than just a basic collectible that most 3D video games have. You can use these designs in the actual gameplay and offer a wider range of customization. You can customize your graffiti in this game with several preset tags available in 3 different sizes. Many are unlockable through collectibles, and the cherry on top is being able to create your very own graffiti tags with an in-game painting/typing tool that offers a very nice range of customization. It allows you to enter your own text and fonts and has a very in-depth customization tool. You can even connect online and download other players' graffiti to use in your own games. In modern games, this doesn't seem so special, but in 2000, during the early days of the internet, this was a mind-blowing feature. The internet features were not limited to just graffiti. It featured newsletters for the game that featured tips and tricks about the game, as well as any real-life events associating with the game. This feature is lost in current times. Now we would just look up tips on YouTube and not given it through ways associated within the game itself, similar to how we lost video game manuals and guidebooks. The final feature within the internet access of the game was worldwide leaderboards for the point system, making it feel much more valuable and meaningful. but without this leaderboard feature, the score system loses its charm. It created a sense of community as people would come together to compete for the highest scores, optimizing the game as much as possible. Another gameplay mechanic at play is the time limit. Although it is rather extensive, we do have a time limit to each mission. I very rarely was caught by the time limit since the game does feature a learning curve, and it does create a sense of urgency to each level. As you progress through the game's story, you'll receive challenges from opponents wanting to test your skills, and if you beat them, you get to recruit them. These are what I mentioned earlier, and you can use them as makeshift tutorials to learn the deeper mechanics of the game. The other type of challenges which are most frustrating is the Tagger's Tag challenges / boss fights. At certain points in the story, you will defeat certain gangs, and to finish them off, you must chase the gang members down and spray paint their bodies 10 times as an act of victory. These are extremely frustrating, and if you aren't the best at the game, you're going to struggle a lot. It's not frustrating to lose. It's frustrating you have no real efficient way to progress. If you make a mistake and fall behind, you know instantly you cannot catch up. The final type of challenges are the races, which are not as mechanically flawed and frustrating as the chase challenges, but it does require a deeper map knowledge and familiarity with the game's controls. There are very few flaws and issues with the gameplay and controls. If you take time to settle in and learn the complexities in the controls, you can absolutely close that skill gap quickly, and you'll enjoy the game more and have a richer, more fulfilling experience. The key to getting good at Jet Set Radio is the ability to maintain speed and momentum. Momentum is hard to build up, and a tiny mistake in the janky controls can lead to you coming to a full stop. At many points in the game, you'll find yourself jumping slightly ahead in order to get to where you want to go. This will happen a lot. When this does happen, there is always a better, more effective way to progress, you just haven't found it yet. Play around with the maps and have fun. Whilst you explore these maps, you'll find moving obstructions that can damage your health and put you to a halt. These are usually in the form of different cars and vehicles, but also this game's enemy. The police are after you across Tokyo to keep the streets clean. The police can send an array of policemen, armed soldiers, hitmen, attack helicopters, tanks and more. They are in a constant chase with you, and your aim is to avoid arrest while tagging Tokyo. But whilst you're tagging the streets, they still chase after you, shooting and attacking you, and can very quickly become hectic and crazy, but in a fun way. They will attack and grab you, trying to bring you to a complete stop whilst you brush them off and escape. One major flaw I found within the game, which does not make complete sense to why it's a feature, is that you can just walk out the map and return to the gang's base. However, you have no clue where the map ends, and at many points you'll be strolling down the streets, and before you can fully stop and process the warning, you're back in the main menu. The pause menu does however show you the boundaries of the map, but it's not convenient to constantly be pausing and checking your map just in case you might be close to the edge. However, opening the map does show you the location of the remaining graffiti spots and how many are left, which is a feature I discovered way too late in the game. It is not for initial casual players. You must learn the controls deeply before casually playing the game. When facing different challenges, it's smart to take advantage of different characters in the game. Each character has unique stats that make them more suitable for certain challenges and levels. The statistics aren't inherently clear what they mean at first. We are shown stats for power, technique, and graffiti. Power is essentially a health bar. Technique and graffiti are mostly regarding the amount of points you obtain during chain tagging combos. The higher the graffiti bar means the more difficult these combos will be, and therefore obtaining more points. When it comes to statistics, the characters are not the most unique or distinctive. They're very similar, and if you don't care too much about points, you'll most likely find yourself using the characters with a higher power stat. Each character also has a different amount of maximum spray cans they can hold at one time. They all don't really have any defining differences when it comes down to movement, physics or speed, which could have been a huge deal. The game's roster does include a wide range of characters which, unlike the statistics, they are all unique and original. They're all easy to distinct from one another. As I mentioned earlier on, Kikuchi wanted each character to feel less human and more like an icon. All the attention went into the character's vibe and design, and it's very clear to see the results. The three characters you'll have access to at the start of the game is Beat, Gum and Tab. Beat is the main character of the game and is designed from the original concept arts of the game. He has an orange t-shirt, red hair, and is most easily recognised by his huge headphones and green goggles. He has balanced stats all around and a can capacity of 20. Gum exudes a tomboyish charm and serves second to Beat. She wears a white sundress pulled over a green striped long sleeve shirt and is most identifiable by her helmet. She prioritizes a higher graffiti stat with lower power and technique and a can capacity of 15. Tab skates around wearing a blue boiler suit and a beanie that blocks his eyes. He has lower graffiti with more focus on power and technique with a much larger can capacity of 30, the highest health stat of the original characters. Then we have characters that will join the GG gang after unlocking certain requirements throughout the story.
Understand what's going on here.
Garam will join you after you complete the Monster of Kogane mission and passing his challenges, rocking snow camo pants and Spider-Man-esque goggles. He's also pretty well spoken. He has a very high power stat with lacking technique and graffiti and a can capacity of 30. Mew, however, has blue hair, wears a frilly blue dress and has blue striped stockings. She has a lower power stat with more focus on technique and a little on graffiti with a can capacity of 20. She also joins once you complete the level Ben 10 Boogie and passing her challenges. One of the lower power stat characters of the main cast is Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo has all sorts of connections in the streets. He wears a neon green hoodie and red sunglasses with messy hair. He also has a very low can capacity of 15. He does, however, make up for this with extremely high technique and graffiti stats. You unlock him after beating him in a race after completing the noise reduction level. Combo and Cube are more story-related characters that appear at the beginning of Chapter 2 and adds a new mix of the game from their perspective. Cube is playable immediately and joins the GGs after completing Gum's challenges. She's decked out in a sleeveless black shirt and has a can capacity of 25 as well as pretty balanced stats all around. Next up is Combo, who you recruit after you beat Beat in a race while playing as him. Wearing a big gold yen chain and a bucket hat, he's the largest GG and also has the most health in the game. He lugs around a huge boombox on one shoulder. He has the average can capacity of 20 with almost maximum power stats, average graffiti and a fairly low technique. After completing the level Fight or Flight, Slate approaches you and you must beat him in a race. He has a slightly more balanced version of Combo's stats, however a whopping can capacity of 40. Slate is scrawny and tall, even taller than Combo. He wears a dusty orange raincoat and has 3 dreadlocks across his otherwise shaved head. The final character to top off this roster is Piranha, wearing white bell bottoms and a tight white top. She has 2 dreadlock pigtails and keeps a set of red goggles on her forehead. After completing the Explosion level, passing all of her challenges allows you to recruit her to the GGs. She has a fairly high power stat with disappointing technique and a low can capacity of 15, however a whoppingly high graffiti stat. Now this ends the main cast of characters. There are however bonus characters and some fun ones too. They will however take longer to unlock. I mentioned earlier on that achieving Jet rank in certain missions will unlock certain secret characters. Unlocking Jet rank on all missions allows you to unlock as playable characters the rival gangs within the first chapter of the story. In the Kogane-cho area unlocks Poison Jam, Bentem-cho unlocks Noise Tanks, and finally Shibuya-cho unlocks the Love Shockers, incentivizing replayability and motivating you to achieve that higher score and increase your roster of characters. Poison Jam are wearing monster fish masks and clawed gloves and skates. The Poison Jam gang big into slasher flicks. They have a high power, low technique and medium graffiti stats with 20 can capacity. Holding X allows you to unmask Poison Jam. Love Shockers have crimson dyed hair with liberty spikes. The Love Shockers are a gang of scorned lovers who take out their hate on the walls they tag. They have a low power, very high technique, and medium graffiti stats with 30 can capacity. Noise Tanks are adorned in white suit with night goggles, tape recorders strapped to their chests and robot arms clinging to their backs. They're hackers, tinkerers and nerds, but are skilled skaters. They have high power, medium technique and very high graffiti stats with a very high 50 can capacity. Another secret unlockable character is the final antagonist of the game, Goju Rikaku himself. Goju Rikaku takes 3 times as much damage compared to all other characters. He wears a business suit, a silk boa, and his skates have rhino horns sticking out from the front. You must achieve jet rank for every level in Grind City and complete the story. He has unique stats of extremely high power, low technique, however maximum graffiti stats and a can capacity of 30. The final unlockable character in the game is hidden away pretty well. After unlocking every single other character in the game, on your second playthrough, completing the Monster of Kogane level before Benten Boogie level. After this, in Chapter 3, a member of the Noise Tanks will appear and challenges you. Completing his challenges lets you complete your roster of characters with the final edition of Potts, the notorious cyborg roller skating dog, which has abysmal power, awful graffiti, a can capacity of 7, but he has high technique and takes greatly reduced damage. Jet Set Radio has a simple premise that expands dramatically fairly quickly into the game, but for now I'll leave it up to DJ Professor K to explain what the premise of Jet Set Radio is.
There's a city that cannot be found on any map called Tokyo-to, but everyone just calls it Tokyo. The 2 hottest things in the streets of Tokyo-to are the punks wearing magnetically driven inline skates powered by newly developed Netrium batteries and Jet Set Radio, a pirate radio station manned by the DJ Professor K that plays nothing but non-stop hardcore music. Those street punks have been named Rudies by the people of Tokyo-to. They roam the streets and cover the city with their personal graffiti, claiming that it is their way of expressing themselves to the world. However, ever since the metropolitan government and the financial conglomerate, the Rokkaku Group, combined their efforts to co-found the 21st Century Project, the streets of Tokyo-to have never been the same again. Police crackdowns on the Rudies have become more severe, and Captain Onishima is more anxious than ever to put them behind bars. The streets of Tokyo-to are ready to explode.
The first chapter is the longest segment of the game, and extra time is spent becoming familiar with the controls and finding out what is or isn't possible within the game. Throughout the missions, there are cutscenes that are displayed through the radio by local DJ Professor K. Professor K is the voice of the story and narrates the whereabouts and events of other gangs and guides you through this game's story. He is a bombastic, energy-filled character that's a fan favourite and is responsible for all the music across Tokyo-to. Professor K tells us of a few gangs across Tokyo-to. The GGs are competing for turf against the all-female gang the Love Shockers in the shopping district of Shibuya-cho, the cyborg otaku noise tanks in the Bentencho Entertainment District, and the kaiju Poison Jam in the Kogane-cho Dockyard. This chapter's antagonists are the Tokyo-to authorities led by Captain Onishima, who pursues the gangs with armed police forces and military-grade vehicles like tanks and attack helicopters. This chapter's mission structure and story progression is simple. Each area of Tokyo-to is run by the 3 gangs. The GGs compete by spreading graffiti across the opposing gang's turf. After successfully contending and breaching territories, a makeshift boss fight becomes available in the name of Tag is Tag based missions, which are timed missions where the player has to spray each rival gang member 10 times, totaling 30 sprays. The GGs begin in Shibuya-cho and arrive at the bus station to contest against the Love Shockers while sneakily avoiding the police. The first mission of the game introduces you to the Love Shockers and opens the map to your freedom to learn the mechanics of the game at your own will in a small area. Stopping the Love Shockers from spreading graffiti and instead spraying your own is the main objective for the majority of the game, and we learn that here. Mission 2 is essentially the exact same as Mission 1, except now in a new area with more hazards and danger afoot. Slightly increasing difficulty in the sense there is more to avoid, more obstacles to grind from and stunt between, with a park area, highway construction, and sewers to explore. Stop the Love Shockers, avoid new waves of SWAT teams and motorcycle units, and spread that GG graffiti all over the place. SWAT teams will deploy tear gas that damages you over time, and motorcycle squads are specifically deployed to tackle you down once you start a graffiti combo. In Bentencho, the residential area, the city of the night, this rightly secured map features a multitude of rails to grind on at the top of a residential area. A difficulty spike is present here, since the map is very enclosed and requires a lot of technical movements, especially when Onishima and the police are involved. So we remain in Ben 10 and find ourselves in a train yard with two paths. This map is 3 areas connected together. The train graveyard, Genkijomi Plaza, a commercial district filled with movie posters and advertisements, and Genkijomi Street, a map similar to our previous mission in the residential area, filled with tight spaces and lots of colour. This map also introduces the first waves of military-grade tanks and parachute squads that are deployed to stop the GG. The tanks are monsters that hit hard and hit far. Stay clear of them by any means necessary, and the parachute squads deploy from the air and blast you with machine guns. This is just another mission of tagging and running the hell away from Onishima and the others. A new challenger approaches. Mew is here and challenges the GG skills. In order to recruit her, we have to pay attention to Mew's movements and repeat after her. She will join the gang. Now to end Bentoncho, we enter the business district with another tag as tag mission, where we must chase the noise tanks throughout the business district of Bentoncho. We must spray each opposing gang member 10 times with graffiti or 30 times in total. Professor K reveals over the radio that the noise tanks are defeated and it's game over, and speaks of a mysterious piece of a record the GG's picked up from the noise tanks. In the dock city of Kaganecho, in the residential area, we face the gang Poison Jam for the first time. This residential area is large and has 4 distinct tiers, making the map feel fuller to an extent. Here we will also face parachute squads and police dogs, and the GGs must be putting a stop to Poison Jam's tags and GGs spread their dominance on the area. Yo-Yo approaches and challenges the GGs to put their skill to the test. However, it's a different challenge than what we're familiar with. Here, it's a race. We must race Yo-Yo across the city of Bentoncho, and we will discover that the maps in each of the 3 Bentoncho missions are fused together into one huge map of the city. We must traverse through the city quickly and take shortcuts to claim victory. When selecting the next mission, a character approaches demanding a challenge. This is Garam, and beating his challenges successfully lets him join the gang. This is essentially a more advanced version of the tutorial missions. It is, look what I'm doing and repeat after me. We remain in Kaganecho, in the factory ruins. Kaganecho's factory ruins are a rather small map with a lot of higher located graffiti that requires a little more skill to reach. Its indoor area provides great cover from the attack chopper's missiles, which pack a huge punch. Continuing the Kaganecho trend, I mentioned earlier the difficulty regarding these missions, as precise movements and map knowledge is needed in order to succeed. We are deep in the sewers of Kaganecho, and all you have to do is spray each member of the opposing gang 10 times or 30 times in total to declare victory. Professor K reveals Poison Jam are now worm food. A black car approaches and kidnaps the remaining member of Poison Jam, as they leave a mysterious piece of a broken record that got left behind with Poison Jam's mask. The piece fits perfectly with the piece found with the noise tanks, and he wonders if the Love Shockers have the final piece. Returning back to the GG's home turf in Shibuya-cho, we go to Center Street. The Love Shockers are ready to brawl and settle things once and for all. In this tag as tag mission, all members of the Love Shockers take different routes, which increase its difficulty. Choosing a character with high can capacity is recommended here in order to quickly track and chase each of the Love Shockers and spray them down. The Love Shockers were defeated and dropped a golden rhinoceros badge. The badge belongs to a group of ruthless Asian killers, and rumours spread they are also the culprits for kidnapping Poison Jam too. The Rokaku business group is run by a strange man named Goji Rokaku, who owns a large majority of the city. He has a project called the Rokaku Project 2000, which is an improvement plan to increase productivity and prosperity citywide. He calls it the future of Tokyo. They are responsible for clearing a lot of GG graffiti around Tokyo. Chapter 2 of the game begins and features 2 bonus levels that was not present in the original Japanese release. These 2 missions are regarding what I mentioned earlier, about the North American influence, and 2 maps were created with the influence of New York City. The GGs are approached by Combo and Cube, who is searching for their help to find their friend Coin, who has been captured by the Rokaku Group business conglomerate for his vinyl collection in their hometown of Grind City. Here you get to play from the perspective of Combo and Cube and must face Beat and Gum in certain challenges. Once you win, Combo and Cube join the GGs. We also obtain new types of enemies here. In Grind City, the Rokaku gang are hunting us and send army soldiers and waves of hitmen with unique abilities after us. Right off the bat, we play as Cube and gotta complete a challenge from Gum. Just copy her and prove your skills. The next challenge is from Beat, and we play as Combo in a race. We must race Beat through the streets of Shibuya-cho, and it combines all the sub-maps we have seen in previous missions into one larger map. There are 2 missions in total, both in these new locations, the first being in Bantam Street and the second in Grind Square, both set 2 months prior to Chapter 1. Here in the New York inspired Bantam Street, we have an easy to navigate square level that's calmer than most. You're forced to use Combo or Cube here, and that's fine as they're great characters. To go along with a new chapter, new characters and a new map, we also have a new set of antagonists within the missions, assassins sent from the Goji Rokaku group. The first being the new Rhino Patrol, which is essentially a harder hitting version of the regular cops, but also our first group of assassins arrive with huge hard hitting whips which are hard to avoid. Many of these are lurking around. The map features an overpass with some nice graffiti spots on the roof of a few buildings and a skate park fitting for the game. It's a nice, casual, low-key map. For Mission 11, we enter Grind City. Going back 2 months before Combo and Coin approached the GGs, we play as Combo in the towering Grind City, at the Rokaku headquarters in Grind Square. Grind City is the ultimate encapsulation of New York City. Everything here screams downtown New York, with high skyscrapers that feature several grind rails to use to jump between buildings. Cable elevators are used to reach higher up graffiti spots, which can also be used to take down some helicopters. Rhino Patrol are here too as well, as a new electric based assassin that will electrocute specific grind rails and kill your momentum. It's a nice change of pace within the storytelling, allowing us to understand why Combo and Cube approached us from their perspectives months before, and now it's all cleared up, we can approach the final chapter of the game. Combo and Cube have brought the Golden Rhinos to Tokyo with them, and the police have backed down, so it's up to the GGs to save Tokyo. Chapter 3 does not overwhelm you with many new features or maps. It lets you revisit the maps across Chapter 1 with a few new hazards and higher difficulty. Mission 12 starts in Shibuya. Now this is where the game gets really difficult, specifically due to the sheer amount of obstructions that can damage us. This mission is set across the entirety of Shibuya-cho, with secret bombs planted across the city. Suicide bomber rhinos appear along with the Rhino Patrol attack helicopters and new assassins who have Molotov cocktails and cause burning damage over time. The sheer amount of tags required in this mission may cause an issue, but tag them all and save Shibuya. Piranha approaches and challenges the GGs. Piranha's challenges aren't really challenges after coming from the back of the previous mission, but she's very good for acquiring jet rank, so let's not complain. It's a simple repeat after me mission. A mysterious gang in jetpacks approach and the police are too scared to fight back. It's up to the GGs to save the streets of Kagane-cho. Now we enter the entire city of Kagane-cho to save them from the Rhino Patrollers and newer enemies. Jetpack rhinos, sniper rhinos, and a new assassin with an assault rifle and a jetpack. Kagane-cho is filled with green and red graffiti spots across the entire city, and is a big challenge with a lot that can go wrong. Make sure to tag them all and survive. A gang in gas masks are intruding the streets of Benton-cho, and the police are again too afraid to do anything about it. the GGs must save Bentencho. This level can be quite frustrating, especially due to the final assassins. One is a huge brolic hulking dude in a wrestling mask that knows judo. Avoiding him at all costs is key. Other enemies consist of flamethrower rhinos, rhino patrollers, and the final most dangerous assassin. He roams around with a flamethrower wearing a gas mask and 3 fuel tanks, but beware for his extremely long range. If you can avoid all these foes, focus on tagging the streets of Bentencho, and free the city, you can progress. Professor K says the streets have all been cleared of the Rokkaku tags and they've been defeated, but the disc was stolen. The final GG approaches. Slate now appears and challenges the GGs to a race across Koganecho. Make sure to memorize the maps, take some shortcuts, and beat Slate to the end and tag the spot to win. Now he will be the final member to join the GGs. Poison Jam appear with men in a black suit, but now he's maskless and seems to have been brainwashed. One final rival showdown for the road. The same rules apply here to any other Taggers Tag missions. Chase down each member of the rival gang and spray them 10 times. However, here they split apart very far and follow distinct movement patterns. Focus on one at a time until you eventually defeat them. Poison Jam leaks to the GGs. The record stolen is the real deal. It was made by freaky evil sound engineer. Goji plans to use the vinyl and make a contract with a demon to take over Tokyo and the world. This is the final area you'll discover in the game and cannot revisit once finishing. There are no graffiti spots and doesn't have a rank based on your score. It's a simple area, but filled with several traversal spots that will cause quite a hassle. The central pillar has a massive record on it, constantly spinning in reverse, with Goji Rokkaku located in the centre, attached to the DJ booth containing belly dancers wearing rhino masks. Attached to the central area are 4 plinths with large tags on them. 2 of the plinths are connected via a set of 3 pipes. The ones with the gears are tricky ones. I recommend sticking to the gears to your left, both going to and coming from the plinths, since they'll always be rolling towards your destination. You need to stay close to the tops of the gears as they rotate, so time your jumps as you cross. Every time you arrive at a plinth, the massive golden rhino robot bouncing around the background will come to a stop at the same platform you've just arrived at. When the rhino lands, it'll pause for a second before unleashing a flamethrower attack from its mouth. This will splash over most of the plinth. You must repeat this process 4 times in total to take down each plinth. Once you've taken down all 4 plinths, the rhino robot will explode and shoot its debris, landing on and busting open Goji's DJ booth. The 2 beams that were holding the belly dancers have collapsed, one end connected to the surface of a record, while the other still leads up to the ruined top of the DJ booth. You have to grind up either one of those rails and tag Goji's bald head when you land inside the booth. The record is spinning so fast it's almost impossible to build up the right momentum, and trying to manipulate the camera with the thumbstick won't help very much. If you time it right and get your angle as close to perfect as you can, then you'll be in there and winning the game in no time by spraying that old bald man's head.
That huge turntable of evil, the Rokkaku building, is a pile of dust, right along with the Rokkaku scheme. Now they're saying that the building was destroyed in a construction accident. Yeah, right. But now, Goji's son is taking over the Rokkaku family business, and Tokyo is back to its glorious old self. Turns out that the Golden Rhinos were just another group of Goji's henchmen. That explains a lot. However, not all ended well. Coin had been pulled too deep into the schemes of the Rokkaku and paid a steep price. And all because Goji was obsessed with control. He didn't know how to deal with people that he couldn't buy with his money. Maybe he really is lonely at the top. Or maybe he's just another eccentric millionaire. Well, they say that money is the root of all evil. Maybe it really can twist the hearts of men. It turns out the record that Goji was looking for, The Devil's Contract, was just an old indie record, a hoax. Maybe his twisted mind created the whole story out of rumors and superstitions in order to try and sate the demons of his own heart. Nevertheless, the noise tanks are in repair. The love shockers are all broken-hearted again, but Poison Jam is back and planning more mischief. In the end, it looks like they were the same as all of us after all. They'd been looking for something more, just trying to make sense of their own lives.
As we come to the end of Jet Set Radio and the credits roll, we feature one last song to send us off with a final lasting impression of the game. Sweet Soul Brother was created with the intention of being the end credit theme of the game and stands out as one of the most unique tracks in the entire OST. Hideki intended this song to be his final goodbye in a musical format. Sweet Soul Brother takes the player through a wave of emotion through its cheery tone and climatic nature, fitting for the final credits. The essence within Sweet Soul Brother encapsulates the entire game's blended energy, style, intensity and distinctiveness that gives the game its identity. This song is not devoid of Naganuma's iconic style. It has constant use of Chop's Sweet Soul Brother sample from Soul Man by Sweet Charles and 3 other samples.
He's a sweet soul brother.
It reminds us that this song fits in with the rest of the OST because it stands out. A frequent trend within this game's OST. From the beginning, it gives a celebratory feel from the use of the vocals and the instruments. Gives a homely feel, like returning from a long mission. Cheering and clapping at the end of the song feels like the game is congratulating the player for playing the game.
Jet Set Radio has had a few questionable but endearing marketing strategies in the past. At E3 in the year 2000, Jet Set Radio celebrated its release with not one, but 2 live performances that consists of actors as the game's characters, performing stunts on rollerblades with a trailer of the game in the background. Advertisements for Jet Set Radio was aired across America in a colourful, eccentric Japanese fashion that still leaves me with an odd face looking at it. The original Japanese commercials that aired across Japan were more focused on the game itself rather than wacky in-your-face actions, except for one unique take on a commercial. You might recognise this from the start of this video. It was in fact a commercial for Jet Set Radio that aired across Japan during the year 2000. I've used commercials in other clips across this video which I found from the channel Jet Set Radio Archives, which brilliantly keeps the history of Jet Set Radio alive and helped me out so much in making this video more fun and authentic. As I mentioned earlier on, the American port of Jet Set Radio released in December 2000 and was renamed as Jet Grind Radio. At the time in North America, a copyright was held by a movie called Jet Set, and is a potential reason why Sega did not want to trouble themselves in a copyright lawsuit. The rename to Jet Grind Radio still had an impactful name that encompasses the themes of rollerblading which relates to its gameplay. To celebrate the release of Jet Set Radio, Sega once obtained permits in San Francisco to hold an event called Graffiti is Art. The contest was aimed to change the perspective of graffiti as vandalism. It got major pushback from the San Francisco mayor of the time, most likely due to fears of exposing younger audiences to graffiti, which at the time, in San Francisco, was used for marking gang territories. Luckily, Sega of America obtained full legal permits to continue the event and had over 130 entries and was a hit and contributed to the success of Jet Grind Radio in America. In 2012, Sega re-released Jet Set Radio on modern consoles for the PS3 and Xbox 360. This version features a controlled camera due to the second analog stick and combined all the region's versions into one. They also added achievements to the game and is the most definitive way to play the game without modding on PC. If you've watched this far, you've most likely gotten familiar with the entire OST. You've probably heard every song about 2 or 3 times by now, and if you've enjoyed it, then you're a fan of Jet Set Radio. Jet Set Radio has reached its 25-year anniversary and deserves this entire analysis to rediscover why the game was so great in the first place. Its legacy continues in its sequel, Jet Set Radio Future, that became even more popular than the original and wasn't cut off by a dead console. It was released on the original Xbox and backwards compatibility still keeps the game alive. Characters like Beat and Gum appear within Sega All-Stars games in the form of tennis and racing. This is actually how I was introduced to Jet Set Radio and many other Sega icons. A sole successor to Jet Set Radio also comes in the form of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, that is heavily inspired by Jet Set Radio and brings along Hideki Naganuma as a composer to help keep its street musical charm close to Jet Set Radio. As we end this video, we can all leave with a deeper appreciation of a game that encompassed street culture and hip-hop, as well as helping change the way society viewed graffiti, and finally, gave birth to the cel-shaded trend we see so often nowadays. Jet Set Radio is a visionary game that deserves to be experienced in any format.